We all know the likes of Arrow and Daredevil being shows based off of comic books, but there are some shows out there that you may not have known. Comic books moving to the big screen is becoming increasingly popular with the success of the likes of the MCU and the Dark Knight trilogy. We've also seen an influx of comic-inspired shows on the small screen too, with Marvel and DC characters alike showing up on various channels and our favorite streaming services. But it's not just the big-name superhero TV shows that are based off of graphic novels, and there may be a few that you had no clue once started in a comic book panel. In this video, we'll take a look at your favorite shows which are based on a comic book series, including dysfunctional heroes, the voice of God, and even the devil himself. Get ready to jump into the world of comic books. First off the bat is the hit show Lucifer. That's right, the devil himself was originally in comic book form before making his way over to the small screen. The show is a crime procedural which initially started on FX before making its way to Netflix, with Season 5 premiering this year and Season 6 in the works. The show centers on the demon, Lucifer, running a club, enjoying a life of luxurious debauchery as well as assisting police with a number of criminal cases across the City of Angels, Los Angeles. But Lucifer is actually a DC property, the home of Batman and Superman, and first appeared in American Gods writer Neil Gaiman's Sandman as Lucifer Morningstar. The character then proceeded to gain his own comic book series under the title of Lucifer, ran by Mike Carey and penned by Peter Gross and Scott Hampton, and follows Lucifer, who has resigned from his post as Guardian of Hell and proceeds to enjoy his retirement as the owner of Lux, a piano bar in LA. That is until he is given a task by the creator himself, which will be a challenge and require heavy sacrifice, but a promising reward.
None of this would have happened if Amenadiel had been watching over Hell like he was supposed to.
Unfortunately though, the comic book series doesn't have the smarmy yet charming Tom Ellis, but I guess you can't have everything. It's not only the devil that started in comic book form, but the voice of God also appeared in a graphic novel before jumping to TV. The AMC series Preacher, starring Dominic Cooper, centers on a heavy-drinking preacher, Jesse Custer, played by Cooper, who moves back to his home of Texas to take over his father's church, but soon finds himself yielding supernatural powers given to him by a spiritual force. Jesse, accompanied by the dangerous Tulip O'Hare and the eccentric Cassidy, find themselves on a journey to find God, battling a bunch of hellish monsters along the way. Just the premise alone sounds like a comic book series, and that's because it is. The show is based upon a comic book series from the 90s of the same name, created by Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon, with the crazy and violent premise generating many fans. Two of these fans were comedic pair and creators of Superbad and Pineapple Express, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who were fans of the insanity of the comic books. So much so that, along with Sam Catlin, they brought Preacher to the small screen. Another zany and overly violent show based on a comic book series that Rogen and Goldberg had a hand in is the Amazon Prime sensation The Boys, with the show centering on a bunch of duplicitous superheroes who are an obvious parody of the Justice League. With a crew of humans looking to take them down, it is probably no surprise that the series is based off of a comic book series. The comic book series of the same name was released in 2008 and was created by Derek Robertson and Garth Ennis, and if you recognize the name, it's because he is also the co-creator of Preacher. I guess he really likes the zany and insane stories. There are some notable differences between the Boys series and the comic books, with a number of the Seven's powers altered and sometimes watered down in the show, as well as a few of the character traits and story arcs. The show arguably centers more on the satire aspects, but keeps the darker tone of the comic book series and a majority of the wilder scenes, such as the plane crash. And yes, Homelander is just as much of a word I cannot say on YouTube in the comic books as well. As we are on the subject of dark superhero shows on streaming services which are based on comic books, we can transition over to Netflix's Umbrella Academy. The show centers on a family of dysfunctional superheroes who are struggling to deal with their bizarre lives, the death of their patriarch Reginald Hargreaves, as well as the impending apocalypse. The show was initially a comic book series back in 2008 and manages to be even stranger than time travel and talking chimpanzees, and was created by My Chemical Romance's Gerard Way. In fact, Gerard Way started working on the comic books after the breakup of My Chemical Romance. with the dysfunctional family representing his relationship with his former bandmates. Thankfully for MCR fans, the band reunited back in 2019, and for fans of the show, Season 2 dropped in 2020 with a third season in the works. Umbrella Academy isn't the only comic book series on Netflix, and no, I'm not talking about Daredevil, although I am still not over that.
Let's go.
The Netflix show focuses on a vengeful teenage orphan who becomes a woman of the cloth, and we soon discover that she also happens to have superhero abilities and is recruited to hunt demons by a religious cult. The show does deviate from its manga-style source material, but the character foundations have basically stayed the same from its transition from page to screen, and the show has been a hit on the streaming service, with it warranting a second season. It's unclear what direction the second season will take, but it may be used as an opportunity to dive deeper into the source material, but that is all yet to be seen. You may know that the Snowpiercer TNT series was initially a movie directed by Parasite's Bong Joon-ho and starring Captain America himself, Chris Evans, and his beard, but you may not know that both are based off of a comic series. Snowpiercer is related to the French graphic novel series Le Trans-Personnage by Jacques Loeb, Benjamin Lagrande, and Jean-Marc Rochette. The graphic novel is set in the dystopian ice-filled future, where the last of humanity reside on a knitted-out train with society divided by class that plows its way through the snowy landscape. While Bong's movie is a real-time version of the graphic novel, which takes place over a long period of time, the series takes a different track and is set 7 years after the fall of Earth and reboots the continuity of the movie. The dark and oddly endearing Netflix show End of the Effing World is a unique look into adolescence as it follows teens, young psychopath James and renegade Alyssa, as they take a road trip across the UK in search of Alyssa's father.
Okay.
The hit show is actually based on a black and white graphic novel series by Charles Forsman, which is a dark and compelling tale from the nihilistic perspective of the two teens, and is an extremely graphic novel by its own right, and the show certainly remains in keeping with the tone of the graphic novel. Season 1 of the show was a big hit and popular among fans, although Season 2 received a slightly more lukewarm reception. Like Lucifer, Stumptown is a crime drama that takes place on the West Coast, with the protagonist solving crime and providing sharp wit. They are also based off of a comic book series. The series, starring Avengers and How I Met Your Mother star Kobe Smulders and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and New Girl star Jake Johnson, is based off of the comic series of the same name that focuses on a successful PI with a gambling addiction who finds herself tasked with solving a complex crime. The show does take a different direction to the comic book series and has a new, fresh take, and was warmly received by audiences, but a second season of the ABC show is now unlikely due to the buzzkill that is COVID-19. CW will certainly be known for its comic book adaptations of works such as Riverdale and its collaborations with DC, with shows in the Arrowverse such as Arrow and The Flash. But one that you may not know about in the CW-DC relationship is iZombie. iZombie started off in 2010 as a DC comic created by Chris Robertson and Michael Allred, and follows medical student Olivia Moore, who struggles to change her appearance and hide her deadly secret. The show takes upon the same premise, becoming a supernatural crime procedural show in the same vein as Lucifer, with Liv absorbing the memories of the brains she feeds on. The show was then eventually picked up by CW in 2015, where it ran for 5 seasons. Sci-fi show Wyona Earp has been a fan favorite since it dropped on Sci-Fi all the way back in 2016, which feels like a lifetime ago now. The show focuses on the ritual Wyona returning to her hometown, Purgatory, where she fulfills her destiny as a demon protector, fighting off the souls of criminals which were killed by her great-grandfather and keeping her hometown safe. The series is based off of a comic book miniseries created by Bo Smith in 2003. Seriously, what is it with demon fighting and demons in general, comic books being turned into TV shows? If you have a comic book series containing demons and demon fighting, quickly sell it now. Or one including zany and insane storylines, apparently. Let's go on to the bonus round, shall we? Because you guys are a bunch of lucky ducks, and we wanted to give you an extra one for making it to the end. This one is another sci-fi show that was also a comic book series. The show, Happy. The show stars Christopher Maloney and the voice of Patton Oswalt, which I swear is in everything, and centers on the hero Nick Sachs, a former cop turned hitman who gets shot learning about a local crime family and starts seeing a strange and hallucinatory blue unicorn that goes by the name Happy, because of course it does. The show gets weirder from there, with the imaginary blue unicorn, who we learn is actually a friend of Nick's daughter, leading him to find her after she and a number of other children are kidnapped. For those who haven't seen it, the show is a strange, dark, violent, and weirdly funny treat for audiences, and as you guessed, it was also inspired and based upon a comic book series of the same name, created by Grant Morrison and Derek Robertson. Which one surprised you the most? Do you want to read any of them? Have you already? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to Screen Rant for more awesome content. See ya!